Good evening, everyone, from Trinity-Pawling School, and welcome to another edition of Pride Perspectives, a conversation with the community. My name is JP Burlington, Director of Admission, but on this night, more importantly, class of 1995, which is celebrating 25th anniversary. And so it's fantastic to be here tonight with all of you. We thank you, faculty, for being on, current parents, our staff, and of course, alumni from all years have decided to join in on this conversation to talk specifically about Coach Coratti. Our Pride Perspectives have been going on since the spring, and if you're interested in hearing more from us, you can go to our website and check out all the different issues of Pride Perspectives that have gone on. And there have been webinars on the college process, on our Center for Learning Achievement, opening of school, but also some fun ones with our alums from all over the map. So we really appreciate you being here tonight and honoring someone who has been a part of many of our either the classroom or the field or the mat, or just life in general. And before I move forward anymore, I want to welcome and introduce Headmaster Bill Taylor, who will start us off.
Thank you, JP, and welcome everybody. And thank you for taking time out to be here this evening. Special thank you to our panelists and for your contributions, which I'm sure are going to be wonderful. I look forward to watching you all as a participant. But this is our kickoff to our reunion Reimagined. That's obviously a virtual reunion this year, given the obvious circumstances of that which we're all working to navigate. But we've got a lot of good things planned, a lot of fun events planned, and we hope as your schedule allows, you'll be able to log in and be a part of this weekend. And then as importantly, perhaps more importantly, next year, when we're able to be back on campus, please plan to venture back, and we'll have a very rich celebration when we're able to gather together. But I can't think of a better way to begin this year's celebration, whether it's virtual or not, than with a celebration of Coach Dave Coratti and certainly Debbie Coratti and everything that they have meant to Trinity-Pawling as Dave and Debbie work to conclude their 40th year here at Trinity-Pawling, which is an amazing milestone. And it just sort of boggles the mind to think about how much impact they have had and Coach Coratti has had with all of his players through those years. And I look forward to watching and hearing some of those. I, of course, worked with Dave in two different iterations. When I was hired in 1988, and then we worked administratively together very closely during the 1990s, and then for the last 5 years here since 2015. And it's been a real honor and pleasure to be able to learn from him. And I don't have the types of stories that you all will share this evening. My stories may be emanating from faculty hoops on Wednesday nights, or maybe some tag team wrestling maneuvers during some of our work together when he was Dean of Students. But in any event, what a remarkable impact he has had, Debbie has had on the life of this school. And we're grateful for their commitment, their dedication, their steadfastness, and just the many gifts that they've shared with students, with alumni, with faculty colleagues, with parents, and sharing those gifts and talents so freely. So I look forward to being a attendee at the rest of the event. And thank you all for taking your time to celebrate Coach Coratti.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, and I'm switching your roles right now. All right, so there he goes. So before we move on, I am going to introduce our true moderator for the night, and it's my pleasure to introduce Eric Drath, class of 1988. I'm sure he's not going to like me reading all of this, but this is what I was told to do by advancement. But Eric is an Emmy award-winning director, writer, and executive producer. Currently is the CEO of Live Star Entertainment, a full-service production company he founded in 1999. Started his TV career at ABC Network, moved on to CNN and CNN International, and later helped launch the Fox News channel. Eric and members of Live Star staff have produced and managed TV commercials, music videos, documentaries, public service announcements, network sports campaigns, direct response TV programs, and infomercials. Eric was born and raised in New York City, attended Trinity-Pawling, played for Dave Coratti, and received his BA in political science from Columbia University. So I'd like to introduce Eric Drath.
Thank you. Thank you. And JP, I share the same haircut with you. This is the moderator haircut that, the clean buzz. First of all, it's a real honor, to be here to celebrate Coach Coratti, who is a legend. And when I got the email to see, they said that they want to invite, some of the best players ever at TP to talk about him. I thought that was great, but I'm wondering what these other guys on the panel are doing here. But I'm sure they were okay too. I actually was not a star athlete, although in my mind I always was, and always wanted the ball more. But I learned a lot from Coach Coratti without being a starter, and that goes to say a lot about this man that we're going to honor tonight. A great coach is a great teacher. And that's really, what stands out about Coach Coratti. He taught not just on the fields, anywhere he was asked to go, he led and led with dignity and success, but also in the classroom as a dorm parent, as a leader on our school. And I think that should not go missed tonight when we do talk about some of the great athletic achievements that we're going to go through, which clearly he achieved, deserved. You don't get your name on a football field if you're not a legend. And you also don't name yourself a legend. And there's a funny story that the coach is going to share with us a little bit about how that legend status came about. But before I get started with all of that, and before we get to the rest of the panel, I'd really like to ask, Coach a couple questions about his background before getting to TP. Obviously what he did starting in 1981 when he got to the campus is incredible achievements. But where did this come from? And Coach, can you tell us a little bit about your athletic career, as a child and through high school?
Yeah, so I'm from Point Pleasant, New Jersey, the Jersey Shore. Actually, my family started out in Jersey City, and at 3 years old, we moved to Point Pleasant. Lived there all my life. Went to Point Pleasant Borough High School, and at Point Pleasant Borough High School, I played football, I wrestled, and I played baseball. After Point Pleasant, I moved on to Trinity College. My head coach at Point Pleasant had a good friend at Trinity, and they thought it'd be a good fit. So I went to Trinity College and played football and wrestled there for 4 years. After Trinity College, I then did insurance for a year. Hartford being the insurance capital of the world, those were all the businesses that came into the career guidance office. So I wound up doing insurance for a year, which I did not like very much. I missed being part of a team, actually. And I remembered this little brochure in the college, in the career guidance office from the Rectory School in Pomfret, Connecticut, that said, need teachers and coaches. And so I applied to Rectory School, which is a grades 5 through 9, all boys school, boarding in Pomfret. And I got the job there, and I was at Rectory for 3 years. And University of Connecticut's only about a half hour from Rectory. So I got my master's in education while I was there. And then I wanted to teach and coach on the upper level. So I applied to a bunch of places, and Phil Smith hired me in 1981 at Trinity-Pawling and started my career here at Trinity-Pawling.
Great. And we're gonna get to TP. I just want to go back one more time. And I've been pretty lucky in my career to interview some great athletes like the ones that we're going to talk to tonight, all of whom have had tremendous success both on the field and outside of the field, bringing that athletic experience to life. But when I've interviewed a lot of athletes, a lot of times I've asked them, what was that turning point? Do they have a memory on the field as a young athlete where, or something that they needed to overcome, where they were able to use athletics to kind of get to that next level? Maybe it was a play, maybe it was a game, maybe it was a season, or just a particular incident. And I'm going to ask you that, Coach. Was there a moment?
Well, the school I was at, Point Pleasant, we were pretty good in football. We actually had a 36-game winning streak going through my sophomore into my junior year. And junior year, I was the only non-senior that was starting on both sides. So I felt like I had a lot of pressure on myself because the seniors would, "Hey, Coratti, what are you doing?" And because I was the younger guy on the team. So I think that kind of showed me that you need to step up, you need to persevere, you need to really be ready to shine at a moment's notice. And like I said, we wound up winning 36 games. We ultimately lost our final game of that final year, but I think that that pressure cooker kind of that I stepped into kind of helped me in the future quite a bit.
Yeah, and I'm sure you learned a lot from that final loss, just as much, sometimes even more than you learn from all the wins.
No question.
Great. So I'm going to go around the horn now and kind of throw to some of our panelists, and then we'll talk about some of their experiences. I'll ask them some questions about their experiences with Coach Coratti, and then we'll go to some folks that are out there that have also sent in questions. So in no particular order, but just the order on this Brady Bunch screen that I'm looking at, I'd like to throw it to my old dorm senior. I forget what it was called, or dorm, to me, it was a dorm master, Stew McKnelly. Stew, tell us what, I think you're on mute, by the way, but what was it like to, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it was like to play for Coach Coratti and what you learned.
Stew McKnelly, class of '86, parent of Mike McKnelly, who's going to be graduating in 2021. Spent 4 years at Trinity-Pawling. Coach Coratti was my dorm master, my AP Modern European History teacher, my wrestling coach, and my football coach. So him and Deb probably got enough of me over 4 years, and now they got the apple that fell right next to the tree, so they get a little bit more McKnelly a little bit later on. After Trinity-Pawling, I went to Ohio Wesleyan to play lacrosse. Lacrosse didn't work out, and so I spent the rest of my time chasing my future wife around, and decided I was going to be a Marine Corps helicopter pilot. And after I graduated from Ohio Wesleyan, spent 25 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, and retired from that in 2014. And now I work for Comcast, working for facilities and real estate. But my career was the Marine Corps, and you sit there and you joke about you're going to roast, Coach Coratti. And I was saying to Eric Olstein earlier, I was like, if there's one guy that I probably can't roast, it's Dave Coratti. Him and Deb were my second parents when I got to Trinity-Pawling. Coach Coratti believed in the students and the players before they even believed in themselves. And he put me in the pressure cooker at times and pushed me to be better than I thought I could be, and found that I could be better than that by his influence. How did that transpire? I joined the United States Marine Corps, and I loved every day of it. And I lived by words that he told me. He is, I owe him a debt of gratitude, because he is the foundation that built the Marine career that I had. And I thank him, and I can't thank him enough for it. probably the one time that he really put the pressure on me, that was the one time that I really recall. It was a Thursday football practice. It was my junior year. I was the starting center, and I was just having a crappy day. And my buddy Lindsey Whitaker was the nose guard, and we were going full on. And I finally said to him I'm like, yo, Linz, I was like, just ease up, man. Let's just get through practice. I was like, take it easy. Unfortunately, the great one was standing like right by me when he heard that. And without using the expletives of the day, he said, you don't take it off. You don't take a play off. We're never taking a play off. You practice like you're going to play, and you show up to every play ready to do your job. And that resonated with me. I wasn't perfect at it through the rest of my time at Trinity-Pawling. I look at Chukky in 96, and I look at Paulie in 06, and I kind of look at myself as a trailblazer for those guys. I mean, I wasn't as good as them, but, they came along and they did, they made Trinity-Pawling proud. And it's really awesome to see that. I really take a lot of pride in watching, as I look at the screen, I am the elder statesman of the group. So I love watching the younger guys just feed off of what Coach Coratti fed to us and that we believed in. And it's impacted numerous hundreds and probably thousands of young men at Trinity-Pawling. And I think we're probably all going to have a lot of the same messages, but you're one of the best men I know, Coach, and I love you to death.
Thank you. And I just want to add, Stu, you forgot my memorable moment is the McKnelly cradle in the Hotchkiss match. When we were losing the Hotchkiss and you pinned the kid who was a really good wrestler and we won that match. So that's my memorable moment of you.
The kid hadn't lost in 3 years, actually moved up a weight class because we were both undefeated and he felt the wrath. So it's good to go.
Well, thanks so much, Stu. That was great. And, it gives us more of an insight into Coach. And let's go in order because we're all on Coach, standing on Coach's shoulders. And Stu, and now Chris Cattani, tell us a little bit about yourself now, your experience at Trinity-Pawling playing football for Coach Coratti, and one of your most memorable moments playing for the coach, something that maybe taught you something about life.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Hi, Chris Cattani, class of 1993. I was born and raised in New York, went to St. David's, which was a grammar school in New York, and then went to Trinity-Pawling, was there for 4 years. After Trinity-Pawling, I went to Villanova, worked in finance now for 25 years, and I did my graduate degree at Fordham at night. And I have to say that the 4 years I was at Trinity-Pawling was a great experience, and Coach Coratti was a big part of that. His whole family was a big part of that. And when I was thinking about, tonight and Coach, I was thinking about what I was going to say, some memories, and I looked back at my yearbook. And my senior year, I wrote to Coach, thank you for being a great teacher, coach, and friend. And as I look back on that, he was all three of those to me and to everyone else. And it was really, really important to have that as a boy growing up and to have that person in your corner. And two really quick stories I would love to tell. I wrestled for Coach for 4 years. My sophomore year, I was the weight class of 152. And that was in 1991, that was a really tough weight class. And I was a sophomore and I was just getting beat up left and right. And I was pretty down. It was hard. And Coach always had my back. And there was one match that I won. And someone jumped out of their chair more than anyone else, and that was Coach Coratti. And I still remember that today because just to have that win, just to have it, just to have that one win after a streak of losses made me feel great. And having that support from Coach along the way was really important to me. And then I started thinking about wrestling and all the practices. And I remember back in the old gym, which is now the Arts Center, we were practicing on top of a pool. That if you slammed someone, everything would rock. I think it was on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we would go down to the gym. We would do a weight circuit and then go back up. And I was thinking about that, and coach used to tell us to take that hill, not run up the hill, not, hey, see you up there. He told us to take that hill. And that really still means a lot to me by taking something. So when I have any kind of challenge, when I have any kind of obstacle, I think about taking that hill and running up that hill as fast as I could, and not giving up. And, you know, coach could have said anything, but taking that hill really still resonates with me today. And I still hold that with everything I do. And if I have a tough day, I, you know, try to man up and say, like, you know, let's take this day. So coach, for that and for the many lessons that you taught me and everyone else, like, thank you very much for everything. And I really appreciate it. And just know that the lessons that you taught me, I try to teach other people, as I am a mentor to some people that are younger.
Thanks. And I might also add that Chris was a key member of my first undefeated season. 1992 wrestling team was undefeated, and Chris was a junior that year, but it was a key part of that team.
I didn't help with losing every time, but I had a good time to, you know, not getting pinned or something. But that was a great season.
You know, and before we get going, you know, sometimes wrestling gets a little bit lost in the spotlight of Coach Coratti's great career. I mean, you went 38-0 between 1996 and 98. You know, that alone is, you know, Hall of Fame worthy. You know, that's remarkable. And we'll get to that in a minute. But before I do, let's go to Chukky. Chukky, listen, you know, you played for a lot of coaches on the highest level, you know, of the game in football. You know, tell us a little bit about your path from Trinity-Pawling to now, and what was it like specifically playing for Coach Coratti versus other coaches?
You know, what's really interesting is when I think about my time at TP, and none of the seasons that I played football for Coach Coratti was I the best player on our team. And that was really significant for me because, you know, right now I live in Kansas City, Kansas. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but my family moved to Connecticut when I was young, and that's where we lived when I first enrolled at TP in Hamden, Connecticut. And I earned a scholarship to play football at Purdue University, where I started for 4 years and was drafted to my hometown Pittsburgh Steelers in 2001. And I played 8 years in the National Football League, played in 80 NFL games, and won a Super Bowl with the Steelers in 2005. But, you know, what I think about, you know, my experience and I think about the name Coach Coratti, when that comes to mind, it's like I think back to when I first arrived at Trinity-Pawling as a 13-year-old freshman. And it was really impossible for me to envision the role that Mr. Coratti would play in my future. And what's even more challenging to understand is what he must have seen in me back in 1992. Because back then, you know, TP, we didn't have a ton of, you know, athletes playing college sports in what is now known as the Big Five conferences, SEC, Big Ten, et cetera. I mean, our school, we do produce plenty of college athletes for sure. But I'm sure you know what I mean. Me personally, I had this dream even before I got to TP of playing big-time college and professional sports. And I remember sharing this with Mr. and Mrs. Coratti. I mean, I can remember several conversations I had with one-on-one conversations with Mrs. Coratti about where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be, you know, beyond Trinity-Pawling. And what I recall the most is from the moment I expressed my desires and they became aware of my ambitions, the Coratti family did everything and anything they could do within their power to support me in my mission and guide me in finding the athletic success that I so deeply desired. And so what's really interesting when I think about it is when people think about the aspects of making it in pro football, the learnings that I owe an immeasurable debt to the Coratti family for, the aspects of my development that Mr. Coratti coached me on, they're not what you think. See, because I grew up in a single parent household with only my mother, hence the reason why she felt the need to send me to TP in the first place. And I'll be the first to admit that when I got there in 1992, I was soft, lazy, and undisciplined in pretty much every way you can imagine. I really wasn't sure if I was going to make it through my first year. And Coach got a deeper understanding of just how much work and attention I needed when I went out for the wrestling team as a freshman, and I was a complete disaster and couldn't hang with the rest of the team. And it wasn't due to lack of athletic ability, but because of lack of belief in myself and my ability to be great. And that's why when I think about it, if you ask me when Mr. Coratti was my coach, and I'd probably say he was my work hours coach. And he coached me in football on the side. But the thing about Coach Coratti is, when I think about this immeasurable number of interactions that we had over those 4 years, is his maintaining his firm stance and constant attention on me handling my academics, paying attention to me as a freshman, how I was integrating into the Trinity-Pawling community, making sure, I was doing what I was supposed to do and contributing to TP as a whole as a sophomore, and what I needed to do to be a leader as a junior and senior, especially on the football field. The thing is, he never let me fall asleep, and at different times woke me up to my shortcomings and encouraged me to improve them. And most of all, he believed in me, even when I didn't, my ability to achieve a goal as lofty as playing Big Ten and NFL football. And so, what I felt like him taking a special interest in me as a young man and seeing the potential in me and doing everything he could to make sure that I did everything I could to reach that potential. I mean, Mr. Coratti is already an incredible father, but, you never really know what role you're playing in somebody's life. And he played that father figure role in my life. And what I reflect on now is probably the most important time in my development towards becoming a world-class caliber football player. I mean, he provided tough love, the direction for my future, and guidance to get there at a critical time. And here's the thing. He's a big reason I got the scholarship to Purdue, which was the only offer I received. And, it's a big reason I got drafted into the NFL. So I have to credit him for the part he played in those accomplishments. But what's funny to me is that he made me feel special, even though he was just being himself. I mean, 100% genuine in his efforts and emotions to help me become the best version of myself that I can be. But I'm not the only one. That's just who he is. That's what he's done for the young men that have come through TP for the last 4 decades. So many men have benefited from having the Coratti family in their lives, too many to count. I mean, this is an emotional time with Coach Coratti leaving TP right now, but simultaneously it's a cause for celebration for a fabulous career in life and the enormous impact the Coratti legacy has had on men and their families literally all around the world. So I just want to say that I will always love you as my own family. It goes for David, Jennifer, Christopher, everyone. I'm just grateful for the supporting role that you guys played in what I call the Trinity-Pawling scene of the movie that is my life story. And so just enjoy the next chapter, and I hope that it's as fulfilling as the time you spent serving us all. And thank you.
Thanks, Chukky. And I might add, Chukky played his junior year on one of our best teams, probably close to being the best line that I've coached. He was the center of that line. But a funny story, we went out to see Chukky at preseason Steeler camp in August one year. And the funny story Chukky told us is that he was always walking around with a notebook and taking notes at all the meetings. And the players couldn't understand that. And Chukky explained to them, that's what I learned at Trinity-Pawling. I learned how to be organized and how to take notes, which I thought was a pretty good story.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I transferred all of the organizational skills I had to make it in college, and I still use a lot of them today. Believe it or not, I still make TP binders, depending on what I'm working on. So thanks for all of that discipline, because I was really a mess. I gotta be honest. So
thanks, Chukky. And what it really shows with Coach is, it's not just about making great players, it's about making great men and really helping in those formative years. And that's something that you got Coach Coratti to do, getting, kids like myself coming in at 13 years old as freshmen and not knowing which way is up or down, and really helping to mold us. In my case, I went a little wayward, but I definitely always remembered, the values that you instilled both on the field and off. Let's go to Paul. Paul, you played on a pretty good team, I hear. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your travels through TP and afterwards, and an experience with the coach that maybe kind of encapsulates the character that he has.
Sure. So my name's Paul Mancuso. I graduated in 2006. Probably one of the fortunate to be one of the only panelists here that actually spent 5 years at TP. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get into it. But played football and wrestled for Coach Coratti, played defensive, offensive line, and had the opportunity to play 4 years at Colgate University, starting on the defensive line for 4 years. Again, still very, very close with the Coratti family. Played against his son Christopher at Fordham for 2 years. And again, we call each other cousins. That's how close we really are. But yeah, no, we obviously shared a lot of great experiences throughout the years, and a lot of the similar themes that Chris, Stew, Chukky already spoke to. Again, having some type of family values that was instilled throughout the karate, my karate experience, and being able to share a home away from home with the Coratti family. Coach Coratti and Mrs. Coratti brought us in. Jen, Dave, Chris, still very close. But I mean, that's kind of the values that my family, they sent me over to TP, and could only hope that I would be able to share a similar experience of home at TP, and the Corattis were, that extended family for me. But some of the things that, really kind of hit home in that 2006 season was the ability to bring together, a bunch of individuals that really had no history, no experience before. And that wouldn't be possible without, the tutelage and the coaching that coach provided us. There was obviously a lot of goals that we set that year. And we wanted first and foremost to beat one of his arch nemesis, Kent, that year, right? Which is a team that he wasn't able to beat. I think it was about 26 years or so. From that season, we made a point to do something for coach, and that was to win that game. And that was our second game of the year. And that was something that we were not going to look past. And that was the number one objective at that time. And, it was something that was really special for the players on that team, to bring together the school and have that sense of camaraderie between all the guys at the school and do that for coach. And again, it was by far one of my most memorable experiences. I'm sure coach feels the same way. Being on that field, raising, having the W on the scoreboard, and then again, celebrating with, 300 plus guys on the Kent field, chanting the TP pride songs. I mean, that's something that will, forever be ingrained as one of my, most favorable football experiences, high school and college. And again, it's something that goes without saying that without that type of experience and without, coach's ability to bring us together, I mean, we would never be as successful as that team was. And again, that team went undefeated. We won the New England Conference that year. Arguably, and when I say arguably, Dave, Coach Coratti's son, and I, we kind of go back and forth on this quite a bit. I think it's been confirmed that Coach Coratti said that that's one of his most accomplished teams throughout, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of it. But again, that was something very special, and I know we share that memory together. But for something that I've been very fortunate of in staying close with Mr. Coratti and his family is I've seen him, early days when I was 13 years old as a Trinity-Pawling student. I knew him as an educator. I knew him as the dean of students and assistant headmaster. He was definitely a mentor of mine. But now I'm kind of, Chukky mentioned the second stage of his life. Now I know him as, a friend, a grandparent. I mean, those are all the special moments that now I get to look forward to and share with Mr. Coratti and Debbie. And Dave and Jen and Chris. Watching that family grow and, watching his grandkids grow up and the love that Coach Coratti has and Mrs. Coratti has for their grandkids is something that is very special. I know that, again, we're going to stay close for many years to come. So again, like Chukky said, this calls for a time of celebration. I'm excited for the Coratti family in the next chapter. And again, looking forward to the rest of the evening, sharing some more stories.
Thanks, Paul. And also to mention in that Kent game, Paul picked up a fumble and went about 50 yards for a touchdown, which kind of nice. And he's also a very accomplished wrestler, including taking second in the national preps, which is the best in the school history. So, but I
recall I fell on the ball in the end zone. I didn't run too far.
Don't mess with Paul like that. And one of the things you talked about, Paul, was this idea of playing for others, playing for the coach, and what a fundamental value of what's instilled in in the teachings and the values of Trinity-Pawling of helping others, and through helping others and playing for others, we find success, and that's been my experience too in life. I did want to also mention that those 2 years that you went undefeated in wrestling, 96 through 98, I think in 1995, Coach, you had a 5-9 team.
Yeah, it was my only losing season. We were 5-9. 9 of the 13 wrestlers had never wrestled in their life. But what was really rewarding about it is, and talking about progress, that same 5-9 group is the team that went 38-0 the following 2 years. So it was a truly rewarding experience, and those guys were awesome.
Wow, from first-time wrestlers to 2 undefeated seasons, there's got to be some coaching involved in that. Let's go to Austrian. Austrian, tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience at Trinity-Pawling, and maybe a moment or some kind of value that you learned on the football field playing for Coach.
So my name's Austrian Robinson. I went to Trinity-Pawling, graduated 2015. Before going to TP, I came from Hillside, so Coach Coratti said rectory, I was kind of hot earlier because it's a rivalry with those two schools. But I got to school, came in as a bachelor recruit, so I never played football in my life. So it was just like I was trying to sneak. He caught me at lunch and was like, hey, after school, come to varsity practice. And I was like, he crazy. Like, I play basketball. And I snuck to junior varsity. And then he came and got me from practice over there. And then that's where it started. But I definitely say, like, tough love with Coach Coratti. Like, he was always true. He never lied to you and stuff like that. He always tried to keep you at a high standard. Everybody. He was fair with everybody. It's just like, he changed my life more than anything. I could definitely say that. Him and the coach off, like, I never would have picked up a football or tried to play football. And it was just like practices. He always demanded you go your best. It was back to, I forgot who said it, but there were no plays off. He didn't believe in that. Neither one of them. They both were yellers. Definitely you needed that getting ready for college because they rip you in college. So they prepared me great for that. I definitely say he gave a lot of speeches, so I can't speak for speeches, which one was the best, but I'll just say definitely just practice alone, just making sure he gave us his all every day. So just like me playing there, I just felt like I could give him my all back, like him putting the time into me.
And Austrian was just amazing in terms of, like he said, he had never played football before, and the development he made in 3 years, and then to go on to play University of Mississippi was amazing.
Wow. I mean, what a story, and talk about discovering talent, especially if it's right in your, in the dining room. That's pretty amazing. Coach LaFontaine, you've got a lot of experience as a coach, coached collegiately before you, as a college coach before you got to TP. You've been the head coach now for several years, many years now. But you can't help but learn from Coach Coratti because ultimately he's a teacher. Tell us a little bit about something that you've learned from Coach Coratti that has helped you as a coach.
Well, hey, I'm Nick LaFontaine. I'm the current head football coach. I tell every recruit that comes down, when we go down to the field and look at it, I say, Coach Coratti is our associate headmaster. He's going to set your schedule, director of studies. If you're a PG, he's going to be your advisor. And I can't tell him thing to do on the football field. It's named after him. So put me in my place quickly. But it's funny that you brought that up. It's a great question, Eric, because I'm still learning. Like I have a notebook right now, and I'm writing notes down from some of the stories. Chris, I wrote down "Take the Hill." We're never saying it another way, and all the experiences you guys kind of brought up to me just kind of epitomizes Coach. I was lucky enough to get here. Regan, my wife, and I, we were kind of looking for an alternative way to kind of live. I was doing college coaching for a while, and it's great life, but it's hard. You know, it's hard on the family. It's very military-esque. And so we kind of looked around, and Coach was at that point ready to step back. And to me, like that was a huge blessing in my life because, you know, I got to work with him as an assistant coach for a year, and then we've worked together for the last 8 years. And I would say it's a lot more working with him and then, you know, for him. But yeah, so I think a couple of things that, you know, I learned from Coach and, you know, I still fires me up. He's got this passion in his belly, and I don't think it's changed since 1981. Like there's a fire there. If anybody's seen a game recently in the last, you know, since I've been here, we put him in the press box to try to muffle him a little bit. It doesn't work. He's screaming from the press box. He tells me on every play that I got to tell every single kid what to do. And I tell Coach, I say, Coach, that's why we practice. Like I can't tell them all on every single play what to do. So, but there's a fire there that he doesn't quit. His preparation to me, you know, you guys are all football guys, so you get this, but on Sundays, you know, everybody else is with their family and, you know, watching the Giants or whatever. And Coach watches every single play of their opponent. He still does that. So he writes down every play from our opponent the upcoming week on all the films that we have. And he gives me a sheet. It's still old school. He still gives it a sheet and he gives it to me, he photocopies it, and it's like a booklet. But we still use that. So his preparation is never waned. He's still, you know, like that desire, that passion, his preparation to me is still a huge thing. And for a younger coach kind of taking a step into this world, this prep world, to see a guy with that commitment. And then, you know, obviously it's reflected in all these great stories that are hearing from all these great people that are on this panel. And maybe lastly, there's still like a perspective that he offers, you know, so, you know, like I'm looking at JP because I cry and JP's a crier too. So some of you guys are close to tears, but he's seen it all, right? Like he's seen it all. So there's stuff that happens every day. And I think as any sort of, and all you guys are professionals and, you know, you're managers, and Eric, you're a CEO. And I think you got to approach every day expecting that stuff's going to happen, like bad stuff. And when I first got here, I know I approached every day like, you know, like kind of, I was ducking everything and trying to shade everything and just hoping that things didn't go wrong, where that's just not reality. That's just not life. Just stuff happens. We're dealing with 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that are going to make mistakes. That's the business we're in. If they were all perfect, we wouldn't have jobs. So, you know, it's just always been great to have him, you know, whenever stuff's going wrong and I think the world's ending, I can go to Coach and he's just like, yeah, I've seen that, you know, and it's just like, all right. And then, you know, with a friendly, let's bring him in, talk to him, you know, let's solve this problem together and move on. And that to me has been a huge, you know, a huge thing in my career as a coach, especially transitioning to this level. One quick story, Eric. When I took over as the head coach, we scrimmage Hotchkiss. That's just what we did for the first thing. And I was all geeked up and I was ready to, split the atom with football and reinvent the wheel. And we were getting ready for the buses, and kids were loading the bus. Austrian was probably on those teams. And coach just looked at me. He's like, "Hey, I picked up the lunches. I loaded the lunches in." And I just looked at him like I had no idea our kids wouldn't have eaten if coach wasn't there to pick the lunches up. So,
Glad you gave him lunches.
Those little things. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I tell everybody. I went from being the head coach to being a lunch guy. But no, Loff is a great X and O guy, but more importantly, he's taken over and done a great job with the character development, which I'm really impressed with.
Coach, before we move on to some of the questions that some of the other attendees have registered, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up someone looming over us all, Mo Vaughn. You coached Mo Vaughn, you both in baseball and in football. We didn't really talk about your baseball coaching. What was it like to coach Mo Vaughn? What did you see in him early, and what did you know you needed to develop in him, both as a person, as a man, and a player?
Yeah, early
on. You want me
on.
to answer this for you, Coach?
Huh?
You want me to answer this for you?
I got it. What's up? Yeah. Early on, Mo, even as a freshman and sophomore, he'd go out on the tennis courts with a orange cone and put balls on it and hit it into the tennis fence, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So it was just his preparation, and I've always talked to the kids when I was a coach about, everybody has the will to win, but do they have the will to prepare? And Mo was someone who had the will to prepare. And actually, I got that phrase actually from the University of Arizona baseball coach, because when I took over baseball, I needed to learn because I hadn't really coached a lot of it in the past. But Mo, right away, you can tell he was going to be a great player. He was an unbelievable athlete. I mean, not only in baseball, obviously, but he was a very good football player. He was a tailback, fullback, strong safety, and on the basketball court, he ran the basketball court like a gazelle. He was very good. He was 6'1", 190 all 4 years at Trinity-Pawling. He got bigger when he got to Seton Hall and started pumping up weights. But it was awesome coaching him, and obviously followed his baseball career. We were actually in our kitchen at Star Hall in 1995. My phone rang, and it was the Poughkeepsie Journal, and they wanted me to give some quotes about Mo Vaughn getting the American League MVP in 1995, which was, again, very, very impressive. So yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to go to some questions. Before I do to any of the panelists, you guys want to make any other, tell any story or anything else before I go to some questions from some others?
Hey, Eric, I got one observation, and I don't know if this is planned, but you take a look at a kid from the 80s, Chukky from the 90s, Chris from the 90s, Paul from 06, Austrian from 15. I don't know if you planned to span 4 decades, but you did. And Coach, I think each one of us, to a man, we've got the same story, and I don't think you ever questioned whether you did it right, but you did it right, Coach. And we're all on this panel are proud that we played for you and that you were a big part of our lives.
Thanks, Stu.
Yeah. Continue on making great men and not just great players. And, I have a feeling that this was all designed too, because there's a great team behind the team, which is the advancement team here at TP and the administration who spends a lot of time putting this stuff together. And I want to just mention that. The first question is from Mark Mancuso. Paul, you probably know who this guy is. Who is Colin Farrell? How did Coach Coratti react to that second match? And what did Paul learn from Coach that day?
Yeah, that's my brother's chirping at me right now.
Okay.
So yeah, no, another blessing too is that both my younger brothers, Mark, who graduated in 2008, and my younger brother Matt, he must have graduated. I'm sorry, I don't know the year, but anyway, both of my brothers were able to play for Coach Coratti and wrestle for Coach Coratti. And both are very decorative within their own accomplishments on the wrestling mat and on the football field. But yeah, let's go back to how Coach Coratti motivates us, right? He had a very unique way with me, right, of how to get me motivated. Usually it was, a tap on the head with a clipboard or a slap on the head with, a wrestling mat with his hand before I walked onto the mat. So, these are some of the things, and I'll share a quick funny story. I entered into this Christmas invitational in Danbury, and Coach Coratti advised me not to do it because I'd been sitting on the couch for 3 weeks, just stuffing my face with food on Christmas break. And he advised me not to. And this is my senior year, and I got beat. And I was outside in the gym, sitting in the cold. Coach Coratti came out there and just basically laid into me for about 10 minutes. And I basically used that as motivation to not lose again for the rest of that season. So, yeah, no, my brother's definitely chirping at me. But again, there was a way that Coach Coratti got us motivated, fired us up. I think we all were chatting before. It's like, what's your favorite memorable, locker room speech that Coach had? And I'll also share, experience in Andover in the championship game in the 06 season. Is that Andover was supposed to be like God's greatest gift on the turf right that year, and Boston Herald made this great article around that team. And at halftime it was a close game. I mean, to be honest, I remember looking back and saying, wow, this team's pretty good. I'm not sure if we'd be able to get out of this one with a W. But Coach came in, fired us up. We had some really talented players that year. We had awesome running backs, a receiver that could high jump about 7 feet. And Coach was very simple, just run the ball fast and hard and block, and throw the ball up to that guy that could jump really high. And we ended up winning 42-21 that game. But it's the way that Coach has in motivating his players, relating to his players. Again, for all of us that kind of come to a common goal and be successful, and Coach did that every year for us. So yeah, thanks for the question, Mark.
Well, and Paul, isn't there's another brother that's trying to raise his hand and say, I'm here too. Don't you have another one?
Yeah, Matty, he played football at Hobart, and he played center for Coach and for Coach LaFontaine as well. So, it's been a great, legacy with me, my brothers, being there at TP. And again, I'm confident to say that we would not have the experience that we had without Coach and us being there together. So, thank you for that.
Great. And here's another question. And I guess, after 40 years, you're allowed a little break and in some of the action. So Christian Sundal, 91, he said he's here. Coach, is there now time for us to improve your golf game?
Well, I played a couple alumni golf outings with Chris Sundal and Mike Burns. And the problem is, because my two sons are on this call, I can't lie because they know my golf game. So, but I did play Christian a couple weeks ago, actually, at my son David's course, and I actually hit pretty well the first few holes, but then it went to where it normally goes. So I played, but not very much.
Okay, great. Well, there's going to be plenty of time to do that, and I'm sure whatever you do now, you're going to take with you this great legacy. What I personally have gleaned out of this is, you've made, great men, not just great players. You've been a teacher, not just a coach, and you've taught people to play for others and not for themselves. And, those types of attributes do make a legend. You are a legend. Even guys that played on your teams that weren't the stars, although I should have been, I know exactly what kind of man you are. And I am just grateful to have been asked to be part of this, to sit with you gentlemen. If there's any other comments you'd like to say, Coach, please go ahead.
And Coach, before you do that, Eric, I'm just going to send you a couple more questions through the chat.
Oh, okay,
just,
cool.
not just the Q&A, but there's some more in the chat that we can, and if we're all
Oh.
okay with it, we'll probably go over 8 o'clock because I'm sure there's going to be more questions coming in.
No problem. I just didn't see any more questions. If there are, bring them on and we'll get to them. I'm not seeing any JP. So
Okay, so in the if you're okay with it, in what there's in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, or maybe somewhere on your screen, there was a question from Mike Burns, class of '91, and Coach, what was your biggest motivator? Staying so passionate for teaching, coaching, and developing so many. So what did this?
It really just seeing the growth of all the student athletes that I coach, both in the classroom, on the dormitory, on the football field, or the wrestling match, or the baseball diamond. It's that growth, I think, that's important. And I think, as JP obviously will attest to, being the admissions director, it's seen a lot through our effort system. I think our effort system is one of the great things that we do. It's when JP in admissions tells a family that we're going to grow your son in all areas, and every admissions partner says that, but we actually have concrete evidence to show that. And, our kids may not be doing well in the classroom one week, but they're doing great on the football field. Or they might be really helping on the dorm. And that's really why I'm passionate about doing this, because I like seeing that growth. I had a student who might be on the call who back in 1984 was in my European history class that was at the lowest level. And that same student wound up being in my AP European history class, one of the top students, when they were a senior. And again, you go back to that 5-9 wrestling team and the growth that they made. That's the amazing thing about why I do this. So.
Okay. Oh, I think we have a question from Eric Olstein from mine and Stew's years, who's now our chairman of the board of trustees here. Fine man. Do you still teach James Chuck James is the question.
Yes, I do. That's how I make my guys remember the 4 Stuart rulers of England. He said James I, Charles I, Charles II, and James II. And he chimed in because he knew that he was the person I was talking about. And doing it all these years, 40 years, someone like Eric, who's now the chairman of our board, I taught him twice, but I've also taught all 3 of his sons, which makes this amazing. I think another person on the call is another father of one of our students, Matt Daly. His son Jack is here now. He was actually the captain of that 92 undefeated wrestling team, as Chris knows. The two, somebody wants me to do a pun, I'm sure. So the captains of that wrestling team was Matt Wyant and Matt Dealey. And I always say, we had the wrestling Matts. So there's my pun.
Mrs. Coratti, if you could smack him on the back of the head, we'd appreciate that right about now.
There's a really nice comment here. Not sure if everyone's seeing it, from Harry Hank Simmons III from '94. He said, just let you know that you've been one of the biggest influences in my life. And you might not know that, but he wanted to make sure to tell you that tonight. And I think there's everybody on this call is going to echo the same type of sentiments. Ivan Lattimore from '94. Who was Coach Coratti's favorite teams and players besides Ivan?
Well, I kind of thought, when I saw that question from Ivan, I figured he'd want me to say Ivan, but Ivan was what, I don't want to say I had a favorite, although he was a great player, especially making an unbelievable catch in a 2-point conversion to beat Suffield. I'm sure he remembers that. Ivan was a heck of an athlete.
I remember that.
You remember that? I've had a lot of great players and a lot of great teams. We talked about some of the great teams. A real quick funny story I was telling Eric earlier. My son Christopher got married 2 years ago, and at his bachelor party down in Myrtle Beach, I got a phone call. They put me on speakerphone because they were arguing which was the better team. And Paul was at this bachelor party. Which was the better team? The 2005 undefeated New England champs or the 2007 8-1 New England champs? Paul's team beat Andover by a couple touchdowns. The 2007 team beat Andover 41-7, and that would have involved both my son Christopher and Mark Mancuso, who was also at the bachelor party. And then, of course, my son David, who wants to really get everybody riled up, said, I think Chukky Okobi's junior year team might be better than those two teams. So they wanted me to weigh in on that, of course. So that's why I keep using the term most accomplished team rather than the best, because the 2005 team was the only undefeated one that won the New Englands. So I called them the most accomplished team. But also you got to look at the 38-0 wrestling run. Some good teams there. I also think back. I was kind of looking at yearbooks today, and I think back to my '89 football team, which was 4-4. We started out at 0-3, wound up 4-4, and I like that team particularly. Strikes me because probably 8 out of the 11 starters, football was their second or third sport. They were lacrosse and hockey players. But back then, and this is the people out there, it wasn't the age of specialization. The kids just wanted to compete, and they got better in their main sports by competing. I'm particularly fond of that team also. But yep. And I just saw that Steve Dora was on one of the panelists, and Steve Dora was on that team. Steve Dora and Greg Steele and Tommy Halloran and Sean Casey and Chris Shupp. Again, none of them, football was their main sport, but we had a really good season and they were tough.
Here's a question that's not to put you on the spot, but that's what this is all about. Toussaint C. Romaine from 96 said, who's your hero or role model, Coach?
Well, of course I have to, talk about my parents. I'm one of 7. My parents had 6 kids in 8 years. My dad worked 3 jobs. When we first moved down to Point Pleasant, he still worked in Jersey City and also worked in Point Pleasant. And my mom raised 6 kids. We had my sister Pam 14 years after the 6th kid. But, both my father and mother, obviously very strong people. My mother especially super strong, and just watching her being able to deal with that. But then in high school, I had my wrestling coach, who was also one of the football coaches, Ed Gilmore. The funny story of how I got involved in wrestling, he was also my gym teacher, and it was my freshman year going into the winter season. And he said, I want those who want to go out for wrestling to sign up on this sheet. And I stood there, I didn't move because I was always like the 7th or 8th man on the junior high basketball team. And I liked basketball, but I was 5'10", couldn't dribble great. I could rebound, but I was going to play basketball, and I didn't go up there. And Coach Gilmore said, "Coratti, get up here, sign this." So I went out for wrestling, but he was just a dedicated. He was, one of those old time coaches in terms of discipline, etc. But he was also one of those guys who cared about you quite a bit. A couple times when I broke my nose, he came to the hospital. I broke my ankle, he came to the hospital. So I grew a lot from him. But with that, my rock for 44 years has been my wife, Debbie, in terms of the support. I couldn't have done any of this without her, especially being the associate head, director of studies, head football coach, 3 kids, and she herself doing a great job with the middle school. But she has been in my corner and supportive, whether we won or lost, coming off the field, seeing her right away, coming up to me. Definitely my hero.
Yep. Wow. Tom Leck from 1982. He says, Coach, favorite memory from the 1981 football season. Was that your first?
I wasn't the head coach. I was a varsity coach. I wasn't the head coach. I was back then. I actually coached the defensive backs and the running backs. And actually, it was my first time coaching the defensive backs, and we had this PG, Roger Haggerty, who actually was an outstanding defensive back, and he probably told me more than I was telling the kids. But again, Paul mentioned Kent in 2005 team, and he mentioned we hadn't beaten them in many, many years. Well, the last time we beat them was on that 1981 team. So I would say definitely the Kent game in 1981, which was a really close game, and Roger Haggerty actually threw a touchdown pass with a couple minutes to go for us to win that game. I think that was the biggest game of that year.
And I'm going to go to Steve and Dora. Hey, Steve, nice to see your name pop up. This question that he writes is, what was it like leading the teams of two great coaches, Mr. Hutch and Mr. Henry? And I'm also going to add, you had the legendary Miles Hubbard with you as well.
Yes, well, first of all, in terms of, role models and mentors, Miles Hubbard is one of the biggest ones. When I became the head varsity baseball coach, I coached with Miles for those 4 years. And, in terms of practice organization, how to motivate the guys, discipline, I learned all of that from Miles Hubbard, and he was awesome. But in terms of I actually wrote down some of the, Paul Henry was the head coach my first 3 years here. And then another person came in for 3 years, and then I became the head coach, and Paul still coached with me. So actually, for many years, it was me, Paul Henry, and John Hutchinson. Now we have the luxury, right, Lof, of having 5 and sometimes 6 coaches. We had 3 coaches for many, many years. And they were, somebody wrote a question in, I think, what are you going to miss a lot of it? And part of what I'm going to miss is that collaboration with coaches. Those 2 guys were just fun to be with after games, before games. Great collaborators, obviously Coach Loff now, and the other coaches that I've, been with for several years. Coach Collins was with me for several years, and Coach Weber, when both Coach Collins and Coach Weber were with me during those championship seasons. And then a guy named, sounds like me, but Aaron Coratti was with me for 5 years, again, during those championship runs. But that'll be a big part of what I miss, is that collaboration with the coaches, because they've been awesome.
Oh, another question from another icon from TP, the amazing one and only Ned Reed writes, what kind of behavior or act drove you crazy on a night in the dorm?
Well, it's funny. I saw that question earlier, and I basically said at the same time what my wife would have said too. What I hated was shaving cream fights. Once we opened the door, and actually the one time my wife opened the door, and there was shaving cream all over the place, and she's basically telling the guys, you better clean this up, because if he sees it, this is not going to be a good situation. But that probably was the biggest thing. Most of the kids over the years were pretty good.
Coach, I have a quick question for you, if you don't mind, Eric. Coach, if you had to speak to Coach Coratti in 1981, what advice would you give yourself? What would you say? Just want to hear your thoughts on that.
I think I'd say, prepare, whether it's academically or in the coaching situation or on the dorm. The biggest thing is preparation. The students, and all you guys were that once, know when you're not prepared. You go into a class and you didn't really prepare for the class and you're kind of winging it. The students know that you're winging it. The team knows that you're winging it. The biggest thing I would say to me in 1981 is to be prepared. And that's basically what I tried to do. And why, as Coach Loff knows, as a football coach, we're 11 o'clock at night, we're still preparing.
Thank you.
Great.
Eric, if I could, there's a comment actually from, I'll tell the name at the end, but this is more of a comment than a question, but as much time as my dad put in during the season, it did not stop during the off season. He would spend hours and hours making highlight tapes on VHS to send to colleges, which as his assistant, I can tell you is a nightmare. He took so much pride in getting kids into school. He was always realistic with kids on their potential. On numerous occasions, I heard him lay into college coaches for not giving a chance to a kid that he believed could play at their school. He made it his mission every year to find every kid a home. That's from Christopher, just FYI.
Yeah, back in the old days, I had the double VCR, and on the left side was the game, the right side was the blank tape. Oh, that's a good play. Rewind it, tape it. That's a good play. Rewind it, tape it, and then you have to make about 8 copies of it because the college coaches weren't really good about getting them back to you. But no, we continue to have success under Coach Loff getting kids in, and we had great success. We have some of them. Paul went to Colgate, Chukky went to Purdue. Actually, in 2011, I had 14 kids playing Division I football, and then great Division III programs. Trinity, Wesleyan, Amherst, Williams. We've had kids all over the place. And that's one of the real rewarding things. Obviously the season is rewarding how we do, but getting the kids to get to their goals and helping them do that was very time consuming, but very rewarding.
Well, all right. Are there any other questions or comments from the panelists before we wrap this up? Well, Coach, I think I speak for everybody when I say that you are truly an inspiration. You're, the heart and soul behind the machine that has developed incredible men, some of whom are on the panel, and many, many, many more out there. I'm grateful to have been asked. If this was a live event, we'd all be standing and applauding. But I think we still can applaud now. So if everybody can applaud, and even if you're on mute, 40 years, unbelievable.
And can I just say one more thing? I mentioned obviously Debbie, but all along the way, my Jenny, David, and Christopher, even when they were all small, came to all the events. Christopher and David, not only came to the football games and helped manage, but they came to wrestling practices and wrestled when they were like 8 and 9 and 10, wrestled the lightweight guys. And Jenny was the biggest vocal supporter on the sidelines, so that was great. And I just want to call out, I don't know if David had his kids up right now, but I want to say, just in case he did, that when this is all over, we're going to spend a lot more time with our grandkids. And so Lillian, Carter, and Matthew, hello, if you're still awake.
Get ready to suit up, boys and girls.
So thank you so much to our panelists, Stew, Chukky, Austrian, Chris, Paul, Nick, Eric. Thank you so much for this. It was a pleasure working with you. And of course, on behalf of all alumni, all faculty, staff, everyone that you've worked with at Trinity-Pawling over the years, we thank you for everything. And for those alums on the call, don't hesitate to reach out to Coach Coratti. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you, and obviously see you soon. And this, again, as Mr. Taylor said, this is just the first of a couple of different events for our reunion Reimagined. Tomorrow night, we are toasting Ned and Maria Reed, and then a couple of other events over the weekend. So please head to the website and be a part of this weekend, unfortunately remotely. But as with tonight, I thought this is a great way to just start it. And, next year, we're celebrating the 5s and the 6s. So I'm looking around this little panel here. You all will be back next October to celebrate in style with those who couldn't make it this year, and we'll celebrate next year. So again, Mr. Coratti, thank you so much for everything. Panelists, thank you. Have a great night. Be safe, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks. Eric, thank you very much for doing this. Thank you all.
Love you, Coach.
Go Pride, everyone.